I remember the exact second I felt it because nothing dramatic happened, and that was the point. No announcement, no quote that could be clipped and posted, no headline screaming my name, just a shift in the air. Like the building exhaled and decided it didn't need me to breathe. The silence changed first, then the conversations, then the way people looked past me instead of at me. It was subtle, but it was consistent, and once you notice something like that, it's impossible to pretend it isn't real. It felt like the league was trying to prove something, not to me directly, but to everyone watching. Like they wanted the world to see in real time that everything would be fine without me. And the truth is, I understood why they'd want that narrative. And this league existed long before I ever stepped onto a professional court. Legends built it, veterans carried it when nobody was paying attention. They earned their place with bruises, flight delays, empty arenas, and years of being told they weren't enough. I was just the rookie, just the new name, just the new face that people suddenly couldn't stop talking about. And when all that attention arrived like a flood, I could feel the resistance rising like a wall. Not from everyone. Some people welcomed it. Some people were genuinely happy for the game, happy for the league, happy for the energy, but enough people pushed back in enough little ways that I couldn't ignore it. It wasn't always loud disrespect. Sometimes it was the tone, sometimes it was the smirk, sometimes it was the way a compliment would come wrapped in a warning, like, yeah, she's talented, but let's see if she can handle this level. Sometimes it was the way my mistakes became proof, while other people's mistakes were just part of the game. And I'm not saying I deserved special treatment. I'm saying I could feel the temperature in the room, and it wasn't neutral. It was like the league, the media, the crowd, the entire ecosystem was testing the limits of what I could carry, how much attention I could hold before it started to break something. So I did the only thing I've ever known how to do. I stayed quiet. I didn't argue. I didn't respond. I didn't go back and forth in interviews. I didn't try to win comment sections. I didn't repost people defending me or clap back at people coming for me. Not because I was afraid and not because I didn't have an opinion. I stayed quiet because I knew something most people forget when the noise gets too louder. This game has always spoken louder than words, and time reveals what emotions try to hide. Time exposes what people pretend not to see. Time turns maybe into we can deny it anymore. At first, nothing looked different from the outside. The schedule kept moving. The pregame shows kept talking. The highlights kept rolling. The league kept doing what leagues do, keep the machine running, no matter who's inside it. And in a way, that's the whole point of an institution, right? It's supposed to be bigger than a single person. The system is supposed to survive. The product is supposed to continue. And I respected that. I still do. But then something started happening that nobody expected. And it didn't show up as one big moment. It showed up as small cracks. It wasn't loud at first. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't come with dramatic music. It showed up in details that people usually don't look at unless they have to. Ticket prices started changing, not everywhere, not across the board, but in patterns you could track if you were paying attention. Arenas that used to feel full suddenly had empty spaces that looked louder than cheers. The energy felt different, like the building was waiting for something that wasn't arriving. Broadcast numbers started fluctuating, social conversations shifted, people weren't just talking about teams anymore. They were talking about a feeling, and that's when the questions began. The ones nobody wanted to answer out loud because they felt too personal, too uncomfortable, too close to the truth. What actually happens when I'm not there? That question hit me harder than any foul ever could, because it wasn't about ego, it was about reality. It was about the invisible relationship between a player and the audience. The kind of connection you can't manufacture with marketing, the kind you can't demand, the kind you either create naturally or you don't. And I realized something in that moment, watching it all from a distance. This was never about proving anything to them. It was about revealing something to everyone else. Because I never asked to become the center of attention. I never asked to become the face people argued about. I never asked to carry expectations that big. I didn't walk into the league and demand the spotlight. I just played. That's it. That's all I've ever done. From empty gyms when nobody was watching to packed arenas where everybody was watching. And when I stepped away, even for a moment, people noticed. Not because I told them to, not because I posted about it, not because I made it a story. They noticed because they felt it. And when people feel something, they start asking why. I remember sitting there and watching everything unfold from a distance. No jersey on, no ball in my hands, no routine, no film session that ended with, all right, now go do it. Just time. too much time. And that kind of quiet that forces you to listen to what's real. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one influencing the game directly. The league kept moving. The games kept happening. The headlines kept coming. But it felt like someone turned the volume down a little, like the music was still playing, but a main instrument had been muted. People started paying attention to things they never paid attention to before. Not just highlights, not just scores, but absence. My absence. I started seeing the numbers, because numbers don't care about anyone's feelings. Ticket prices dropping in certain cities, resale markets reacting in real time, like a heartbeat you can read on a monitor. Games that once sold out in minutes suddenly had availability. And it wasn't just about money, it was about electricity. Fans weren't just buying tickets to watch basketball. They were buying tickets to feel something: anticipation, tension, the possibility that something unforgettable could happen. They wanted to be in the room when it did. And when that feeling wasn't there, even if the basketball was still high level, even if the effort was still real, people noticed something missing. I didn't celebrate that. I didn't feel proud about it. If anything, it made me uncomfortable, because I never wanted this to be about one person. Basketball has always been bigger than any single player. That's how I was raised to believe. That's how I still believe. But reality doesn't always follow belief. Reality follows attention. Reality follows emotion. Reality follows connection. And connection isn't always fair. It doesn't ask who deserves it. It just happens or it doesn't. And then the conversation started getting louder. People weren't asking if I was good anymore. They weren't debating if I belonged, at least not the way they were before. They were asking something else, something heavier, like a door opening to a room nobody wanted to walk into. What does the league look like without her? I never answered that question publicly. I didn't need to. The answer was showing itself in real time. I saw analysts change their tone, like someone had reminded them that pretending gets exhausting. I saw critics become quieter, not because they suddenly liked me, but because the facts were getting harder to dodge. I saw people who once dismissed the impact start acknowledging it, not because they wanted to, but because the gap between what they said and what everyone could see was becoming too obvious. And the strangest part was I hadn't done anything new. I wasn't scoring points. I wasn't making passes. I wasn't hitting deep threes that made crowds stand up before the ball even fell through the net. I was just not there. And somehow, that absence said more than anything I could have done on the court. It was like the league got a mirror held up to it, and the reflection didn't match the story people were trying to tell. That's when I realized something most athletes never get to see, because most athletes don't get forced into that position. They don't get to witness the shape of their presence after it's removed. They don't get to see what the room feels like when they walk out, what your presence means when it's gone. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. I'll be honest, sitting out and watching everything from the outside changed me, not as a player, as a person. Because when you're inside the game, everything moves fast. There's always a next possession, a next rotation, a next adjustment. You don't have time to zoom out and see the bigger picture. You only see your role, your assignment, your next decision. But when you're forced to stop, when the ball is no longer in your hands, you start seeing the whole ecosystem. You start noticing who benefits from what. You start recognizing patterns. You start understanding how narratives get built, who gets protected, who gets tested, who gets forgiven, who gets punished. I started noticing how people reacted when my name was mentioned, not just fans, teammates, media, executives. There was a shift, quiet, subtle, but real. It was in the way questions were asked, the way pauses stretched, the way people tried to sound casual while they were actually measuring something. It was like everyone was holding a ruler up to my career, and even though I wasn't on the floor, they were still taking measurements. And then when I finally stepped back onto the court again, I felt it immediately. Not pressure, expectation. There's a difference. Pressure feels like weight, something pressing down on your shoulders. Expectation feels like responsibility, something placed in your hands. Pressure says, don't mess this up. Expectation says, we're counting on you. And the second I touched the ball, I embraced that responsibility, not because I wanted the spotlight, because the game demanded it, because I could feel in the way the building reacted that this wasn't just another night. People weren't just watching a game, they were watching a statement being made without words. I didn't try to force anything. I didn't try to prove anyone wrong with a hero shot on the first possession. I didn't need to. Because the truth about basketball is simple. The game always tells the truth. It tells it slowly sometimes through spacing and decisions and adjustments, but it tells it every possession. I focused on control. I saw the defense stretch the moment I crossed half court like an invisible rope pulling them outward. I saw teammates get open in ways they weren't before, not because they suddenly learned new moves overnight, but because the defense had to make new choices. I saw the floor open up, and I realized something powerful. Something you don't understand fully until you feel it in your bones. My presence changes the geometry of the game, not because I'm stronger, not because I'm faster, not because I'm louder. Because of gravity, not physical gravity. Basketball gravity, defenders have to make choices. They have to decide how far they're willing to go, how much they're willing to risk, what they're willing to give up to take something away. And every extra step they take toward me creates space somewhere else. Space for a cut, space for a shooter, space for a post-up that becomes easier because help is late, space that doesn't show up in box scores unless you know what you're looking at. That space is where the game is won. And in that moment, something shifted in me. I stopped thinking like a rookie. Not in an arrogant way, more like a door quietly closing behind me. I started thinking like someone who understands that talent isn't enough in this league. You have to understand the whole floor, the whole puzzle, the whole chess match happening inside the sprint. I started thinking like a leader, not a leader because someone gave me the title, a leader because the game demanded it. So I saw teammates looking at me differently, not questioning, not testing, trusting. And trust is the hardest thing to earn in this sport. You can't talk your way into trust. You can't tweet your way into trust. You can't do a press conference and convince people to believe in you. You play your way into it. Pass by pass, decision by decision, moment by moment. And I could feel it happening right in front of me, like the court itself was confirming something. By the middle of the game, everything slowed down. That's when I knew the real change wasn't around me. It was inside me. The noise was still there, cameras, analysts, opinions, waiting to be born, but none of it mattered once the ball was in my hands, because in that moment it was just me, the court, and the truth. And truth is quiet, truth doesn't need to shout. I remember bringing the ball up and seeing the defender hesitate just for half a second, but at this level, half a second is everything. Before, defenders would pressure me like they were trying to see if I'd panic. They would test me like they were checking for cracks. They would play me like I was still a question mark, but now they were reacting, not attacking or reacting. And that's when you know you've crossed an invisible line between potential and reality. I didn't rush. I let the moment come to me. I saw my teammate cut, and the pass left my hands before the defense even realized the lane was opening. Easy basket. And what surprised me wasn't that the play worked. It was the feeling that came with it, not relief, not excitement, control. And I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to, because the message wasn't for the crowd. It was for everyone watching closely, including the people who had been waiting for me to look overwhelmed. I'm not here to adjust to the game. The game is adjusting to me. And I could see it everywhere. On the bench, coaches leaning forward like they didn't want to miss a detail. Teammates standing up before the shot even went in. Not surprised, expecting it. That's different. When people stop hoping and start believing, the whole environment changes. The passes get sharper, the cuts get harder, the communication gets louder. Belief is contagious, and I could feel it spreading. But the biggest moment wasn't a shot. It wasn't a pass. It wasn't a deep three that made the crowd erupt. It was a timeout. I walked to the bench, breathing hard, sweat running, heart still sprinting even though the whistle had stopped the play. And for the first time, nobody was telling me where to go. Nobody was explaining the next action like I was still learning the language. They were asking me, looking at me, waiting, what do you see? That question changes everything, because it means they trust your mind, not just your talent. It means you're not just executing, you're shaping. It means you're not just part of the plan, you're part of the planning. I told them exactly what I saw, where the defense was cheating, where help was coming from, which player was late on rotations, which lane was opening every time the ball swung. And when we went back on the floor, it worked exactly the way I knew it would, because basketball is honest that way. It rewards clarity. That's when it hit me. I wasn't trying to prove I belonged anymore. I already did. And everybody, whether they liked it or not, could feel it. By the final quarter, nobody was talking about whether I belonged anymore. You could feel it, not in the crowd, not online, but on the court, where truth lives. In the way defenders picked me up earlier, like they didn't want me getting uncomfortable. In the way they stopped helping off shooters because they were afraid of giving me space. in the way every possession started to revolve around where I was standing, even when I wasn't touching the ball. That's when you realize respect isn't something people say, it's something they show. I remember one possession clearly. I crossed half court, and before I even made a move, two defenders shifted toward me. I hadn't dribbled, I hadn't attacked, I was just standing there. But they were already worried, already calculating, already trying to solve a problem before the problem even moved. That's power. Not forcing the game, controlling it. I waved my teammate through, waited a second, and then made the pass. Simple, easy, a basic basketball play, but the effect was bigger than the play itself because the defense had already committed. They weren't guarding our team. They were reacting to me, and when a defense starts reacting, it's already too late. Reaction is always behind. The offense is already gone. As the game ended, I walked back toward the bench. No big celebration. No dramatic stare into a camera. Just a quiet understanding settling in my chest. Heavier than excitement, but cleaner than fear. This wasn't the end of anything. This was the beginning. Because for months, people talked about me like I was a question. Was I ready? Did I deserve it? Did I belong? And those questions can mess with you if you let them, because they're not always asked honestly. Sometimes they're asked like traps. Sometimes they're asked like a dare. Sometimes they're asked because people want to feel in control of your story. But now those questions were gone, at least where it mattered most. Not because someone decided to be nice, because the game answered them. And in their place, there was something else. Expectation, not hope, not hype. Expectation. They expect me to lead, not just score. They expect me to deliver, not just flash. They expect me to be the difference, not just the headline. And the truth is, I expect it too. Not in a cocky way, in a clear way. In a way that comes from finally seeing the whole picture. Once you've felt that moment, once you've seen the game slow down, once you've watched everything shift around you, defenses, teammates, energy, attention, you can go back to being just another player trying to survive the night. You become something else. You start hearing the game differently. You start recognizing patterns before they happen. You start trusting your instincts because they've been tested and they've, held up. You don't become the future. You become the present, and the present doesn't ask for permission. It just arrives